Welcome back to the Unfiltered Political Lens podcast. Today we're going to be discussing about the Vigilantes in Minneapolis and how citizens drove themselves to act. In today's episode of the Unfiltered Political Lens, we're diving deep into one of the most controversial and emotionally charged narratives shaping public perception in America right now. The idea that Minneapolis is experiencing a vigilante surge where ordinary citizens are stepping in to take control of their own safety as trust in institutions decline. The narrative taps directly into a growing sentiment many people are expressing that the system is failing, and when the institutions fail, people begin to act on their own. But to understand what's really happening, we have to separate emotion from evidence and perception from reality. The foundation of this conversation traces back to the aftermath of the George Floyd protests in 2020, which fundamentally reshaped the relationship between communities and law enforcement. These events triggered policy debates, reform efforts, and a shift in how policing was approached both locally and nationally. During this period, the Minneapolis Police Department experienced a significant loss of personnel, reducing its capacity for rapid response and protective policing. This reduction in staffing didn't happen in isolation. It intersected with rising crime trends with intensified public concern. Between 2020 and 2022, homicides increased and carjackings surged, and the violent crime became more visible in everyday life. Whether driven by the economic strain, the social disruption, or the reduced deterrence, the impact on residents was the same. A growing sense of safety was no longer guaranteed. This is where the self-defense paradox begins to take shape, and it's one of the most important parts of this entire discussion. Many people are asking a simple but powerful question: why does it feel like no one is protecting us? But if we protect ourselves, we could go to jail. That perception reflects a misunderstanding of how self-defense and law work, but it also reflects a deeper frustration with how those laws are applied and interpreted in real time in real world situations. Under the laws of Minnesota, the individuals are allowed to defend themselves, but the use of force must meet strict legal criteria. The force must be reasonable, necessary, and proportionate to the threat, and deadly force is only justified when facing an imminent risk of serious harm or death. The legal system doesn't punish self-defense and it punishes actions that go beyond that and what is legally justified, which is where the many of the situations become complicated. The challenge is that real life situations unfold in seconds, not in legal textbooks. People don't have time to weigh status or analyze opportunity when they feel threatened. And this gap between the real time decision making and legal judgment is one of the main reasons the fear of legal consequences continues to grow. As these concerns increase, the communities begin to adapt in visible ways. Traditional neighborhood watch programs have evolved into more active and coordinated patrol efforts. Residents communicate through apps, social media, and local networks to monitor the activity and maintain a visible presence in their neighborhoods. These efforts are often labeled as vigilantism, but that label doesn't always reflect reality. Most of these groups operate within legal boundaries, focus on observation and reporting rather than direct enforcement. Understanding that distinction is critical because it separates lawful community involvement from illegal or dangerous behavior. At the same time, isolated incidents during periods of unrest have shaped how people interpret what's happening. Images of armed individuals protecting businesses or homes were widely shared and repeated. Those visuals created a lasting impression that the citizens were broadly stepping into enforcement roles. However, those moments were largely situational rather than coordinated. There is no verified evidence of widespread organized vigilante groups controlling neighborhoods in Minneapolis. What exists instead is a mix of lawful patrols, isolated incidents, and a heightened awareness. This is where political narratives begin to amplify the situation. Different viewpoints frame these actions as completely different ways, influencing how audiences interpret the same event. Over time, these narratives shape belief systems, often reinforcing the existing options rather than challenging them. The institutional trust is at the center of all of this. When people trust law enforcement and public safety systems, they rely on them. When that trust erodes, the people begin to rely on themselves. That shift doesn't automatically lead to vigilantism, but it does increase the community's involvement and the personal responsibility. It also increases the visibility of actions that might otherwise go unnoticed. As a result, perception begins to outpace reality. There are also real risks when civilians move closer to enforcement roles. Without proper training, authority, or accountability, situations can escalate quickly. Misidentification and unnecessary confrontations and the legal consequences become more likely. History has shown that when the line between observation and enforcement becomes blurred, instability often increases. And this is why clear boundaries are essential even in times of uncertainty. Public safety depends on both community involvement as well as structural systems working together. Ultimately, what Minneapolis is experiencing is not a full-scale vigilante takeover. It is a convenience of crime trends, institutional challenges, public perception, and powerful political narratives. Understanding these layers is key to separating the facts from the exaggeration. This breakdown opened your eyes and gave you a clearer view of what really happening beneath the headlines. Don't stop here and hit like, share. This was someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next because we're just getting started. Thanks for tuning into the Unfiltered Political Lens, and trust me, you're going to want to be here for the next one. Peace.